So welcome back to the Cozy Rosy Crochet channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my process that I do to sort my scrap yarn so that I can get it into a usable format as quickly as possible. You are joining me in my dining room today because this has turned into a larger project that I can do in my craft space, and I'm going to take you through step by step how I organise my scrap yarn and then take the time to recake it and make it pretty and more exciting to use. I do have a couple of tools that I'm going to be using during this video. I'm going to share them with you now. The first one is going to be a pair of scissors because I have no doubt I'm going to find some knotted yarn in there. I also have my trusty yarn winder, which is the bargain one off of Amazon. It's nothing special. It's easy to store because you can plop that in and out and you just pull it back out to secure it. You can even adjust the tension on the actual winder itself, and for £15, it has lasted me a good couple of years. Alongside that, I've brought my patience because it's really important when we're sorting scrap yarn to have calm hands and not tuggy hands, because we don't want to be creating any additional knots or getting a bit stressed while we're doing this. I have given myself about 4 hours to deal with my huge bucket of scrap yarn. It is literally a laundry basket full. There is about 2 years worth in here. I've even got some of my previously organised scrap yarn in here where it's already been caked and ready to use. I just never got round to using it. So let's talk about what is considered scrap yarn. My definition of scrap yarn might not be the same as yours, but I want to reassure you that whatever you consider scrap is scrap. I personally don't have time to consider this as workable yarn. It does have a really good use. If you have an empty jar that you have next to you every time you're clipping and weaving in your ends, these are great for using to stuff your amigurumi projects. I have also been known to donate my ends to other people because I would just pop this in the bin. Personally, I'm not a huge amigurumi project maker and I would rather use toy stuffing, because at least, I don't know, it's just not for me. I also consider lengths that are about that long. That is an end. To me, that's where I've just fastened off way too much, snip and in the bin for me. But I appreciate not everybody does that. Any ball of yarn that's had some of the yarn used, this is a great example. You can see that it's been probably used a number of times with little bits taken out. I've got both ends out, but the most important thing for me is I have kept the yarn label either with the ball or around the ball. I need to know that I have enough yarn when I start a project. So most definitely, I'm not going to pick up an open ball unless I know for sure how much is on it to start a project with. It's just the way I am. I know I can weigh it and work out how much is left on it, but if I'm doing a brand new project, I will probably open a brand new yarn. I'm unlikely to grab this for a new project unless I know the project takes less than 100 grams, or in this case, what's this chunky? So 136 meters. If it is less than 136 meters, great, by all means. That's why I keep it and why I keep the yarn band on. If I have got the yarn label, I can check the lot number to make sure that it matches the current yarn that I'm using. But if there is no yarn label on there, I personally don't believe it's worth risking a new project with old yarn if you don't know for sure it's the same batch or the same lot number. The variations can be quite wild, and that's why I always keep my yarn labels on my scrap. So the first thing to think about is dividing it up into different fibres. This is another reason that I do try to keep the yarn ball or the information label with the yarn, because I can tell exactly what fibre it is. I could even, in this example, I know that this is a bulky weight or a size 5 yarn. So it's definitely easy for me to identify. I certainly have yarns over there that are not labelled, and that's all on me. But I can pretty much work out which yarn weight they are because I have other yarns that are marked the same. I also tend to stick to the same fibres. The vast majority of my scrap yarn will be acrylic because that's mainly what I use to make with. I certainly have some very expensive leftover Malabrigo in there, which is, I think, 100% alpaca maybe. I don't know, but I can't remember, but I'm not getting rid of that. I will find a use for it. And for me, that's the other thing that's really important when it comes to scrap yarn. All yarn has a value, even, you know, it is reusable, it is valuable. I really appreciate that we spend our hard-earned money on these on our yarn. And it's important that we try and use as much as possible. I'm still standing by the fact that this is going in the bin. As I said, I'm going to be honest with you and you're going to be able to come through this process with me. So the first thing I'm doing, sorting it into fibre, making sure that all the yarn weights are together. And then if I'm feeling really generous, I may even organise the colours as well, because I have a bit of a bonus project for you at the end of this video. And I think you're going to absolutely love making one of these yourself, because I have a very exciting pattern roundup coming up, which has and features over 80 different scrap projects. And I have every intention of using up this scrap over the next few months, years, and hopefully not adding much more to it, because if I've got this organised, I can use it. So let's get sorting into fibre and then into weight. And then if you want to, you could organise it into colour as well. And then I'm going to be talking to you about the best way to store your scrap yarn and how to make it look as pretty as possible on your shelf. So I have everything that is not, that is acrylic. I don't know why, but I seem to have an awful lot of chunky weight yarn left. I mean, I haven't used a lot of chunky in a while, but this is my non-acrylic pile. Goes to show I really don't use very much outside of cotton. My cotton scrap, I will be honest, is upstairs in a different area, because I do a lot of small cotton projects. This is all bulky, chunky weight acrylic yarn. This is left over from the last time I organised. I've still got a few of it caked up. And then I have a very small pile of Aran. Oh, there's tiny scraps there as well. And I do have a worrying number of yarn bands and a couple of half finished, and that is actually a finished object. And then I've got a couple of crocheted hearts that I must have made at some point. That's absolutely terrible. I don't know how I managed that one. Oh, it's got a massive hole in it. Maybe it had a feature for a reason. And this is an example of what I do not consider usable yarn, personally. That's going in the bin. So now that we have the pile sorted, I better start with this huge pile of chunky and get this organised into some form of colour organisation. These, again, these balls or these bags here are left over from my last sort out. And you can see that I've kind of kept the colours together. Chances are, I mean, they're not the same lot, as you can see. They're ever so slightly different. And then I have various other pink shades that I've collected over time. And I'm going to get started on sorting and winding this yarn up. So, I'm not going to lie to you. I am already bored of winding these yarn cakes. So now, if they have a label on, they're going back in the bag and they are now colour sorted. So that's half the battle. They're in the right fibre, they are organised, but have been left with this little mess of spaghetti. I'm going to make something with all this spaghetti left of yarn so that it's going to be nice and simple to make a little project. I would estimate there's probably about 80, maybe 100 grams of yarn here. So this could be a project like a hat or a start of a scarf at least, that I can add in some of those other scrap colours, but have a little colourful section in the middle. So I've already wound most of my pink, and I think this purple is going to go lovely with it. So I'm just going to find an end and wind some of it up till I find the next end of this. So now that I've reached the end of this colour here, I'm going to bring the next random colour, and I'm simply going to make a knot that is not possible to come undone. You just begin by lining up your ends of the two strands you want to join. So I'm just going to simply wrap the yarn around and tuck in the ends And that's it. It's as simple as that. I will do a close-up for you in a moment with the next colour. You could just trim those ends, actually with sharper knives than I've got, and it just means you can keep on going and you will be able to change colour without having any ends to weave in. And that is always the aim of the game. So we're effectively creating our own magic ball of yarn. So we'll do that again for you with a different colour, and you can see how we wind these ends and create our own magic ball. But as you can see, the colour change just continues on. You can wind your next colour until you get to your next end. I'll do that from a slightly different angle if I can see what I'm doing. So once you've lined your ends up, you're just wrapping it once, twice, then you wrap just the ends, tucking them in and pulling on your current colour. And then you can trim any excess ends you have left over. There's not really a lot left on that one. And then just wind on your next colour. I mean, it's only tiny, but it's going to be a nice colour change. Oops, a little bit come back. Grab your next strand and repeat the join again. I mean, you may never need to weave in an end again with this technique if you're not overly worried about where that colour change happens. You can just, carry on with your next colour until you run out again, and just keep going, adding on different colours, using up these little individual strands. And look at that unique little ball of yarn we've got, and he's recaking already. But you can see with that process how quick it's going to be. So I'm going to continue on winding up all these little bits of yarn, and then I have to deal with the Aran weight yarn. But I'm feeling pretty good. I've separated all those different fibres out. I know what colours I have. More importantly, I know how much scrap yarn I've got. And I think this might be the first lot to be used up. And then once I've finished with that magic ball, I'm probably going to make something corner to corner, because that really does look great when you're using self-striping yarn. So maybe using my own magic ball of yarn is going to make it an interesting colour choice too. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next video.